Hey guys, and welcome back to my Daily News X, the podcast where we break down global events in a clear and simple way. Today's episode tackles a question many people still ask. Why hasn't the United States attacked Cuba despite decades of political tension? So let's explore 5 major reasons why behind this reality. Number 1, international law and global consequences. Yes. In today's world, military action without clear justification can trigger major international backlash. An attack in Cuba will likely violate international law and provoke condemnation from the United Nations, U.S. allies, and global institutions. The diplomatic costs will far outweigh any potential benefits. Reason number 2, Cuba is not an immediate military threat. Yes, it has no long-range weapons aimed at the U.S., no active plans for aggression, and no military alliances that demand immediate intervention. Without a clear threat, there is no legal or strategic justification for war. Reason number 3, lessons from history. The Cold War, specifically the Cuban Missile Crisis, show how dangerous conflict with Cuba could become when global powers get involved. That moment brought the world close to nuclear war back in the time. Since then, U.S. leaders have generally favored containment, sanctions, and diplomacy over direct military action. Reason number 4, economic and political costs. Yes, war is very expensive, believe it or not, financially, politically, and socially. An attack on Cuba could cost billions of dollars, risk American lives, and create instability in the Caribbean region. Domestically, such a move will likely face a strong opposition from voters, lawmakers, and international partners. And lastly, number 5, shifts toward diplomacy and engagement. Over time, U.S. policy towards Cuba has slowly shifted from confrontation to limited engagement. Diplomatic talks, migration agreements, and easing subordination signal that dialogue is considered more effective than war. While tensions remain, military action is no longer seen as a productive solution. So, while the U.S. and Cuba have a long and complicated history, the reality is very clear. War with Cuba offers high risk and very little reward. Very simple. Now, I want to show you guys some videos, basically, of how soon, according to some person, they're talking about how fast, they can get a hold of Cuba, the entire island. So I want you to listen to this video carefully. Just one second.
It's too late. Sounds like a final warning, right? But let's imagine what happens if he actually pulls the trigger. Cuba activates its War of All the People strategy. That means 45,000 active troops, backed by 1.15 million paramilitary militia. Sounds impressive? Here's reality. Cuba's best fighter jets, 2 operational MiG-29s. Their Navy, 2 frigates converted from fishing trawlers. Their tanks, 300 Soviet T-55s from the 1960s that barely run. The U.S. would establish air superiority in 4 hours. Cuba's air defense runs on Soviet S-75 missiles, designed in 1957. American F-35s would eliminate them before Cuba even knew they were there. Military analysts say conventional fighting would be over in 72 hours, maximum. But here's where it gets messy. Cuba's strategy is making occupation unbearable. Guerrilla warfare in cities, roadside bombs. These are the people who trained insurgents in Angola, Ethiopia, Nicaragua. They know how to bleed an occupier. And the real nightmare? Trump would be responsible for feeding and governing 11.3 million Cubans. The island already has 12-hour blackouts daily, food shortages, zero functioning infrastructure. The U.S. couldn't even handle Hurricane Katrina properly. Now imagine rebuilding an entire collapsed nation 90 miles offshore while fighting an insurgency. Military victory in 72 hours, then decades of occupation hell. That's not liberation. That's buying a house that's already on fire.
So there you have it, guys. So people are saying that it would take roughly 72 hours just to get a hold of Cuba directly, when it comes to get a hold of the entire island, and control. Now, I want you to see this actually is something that BBC wrote actually a couple of days in which Donald Trump actually talked to the Cuban government. So Donald Trump has urged Cuba to make a deal or face consequences, warning that the flow of Venezuelan oil and money would not stop. The U.S. president has been turning his attention to Cuba since U.S. forces seized Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro, in January 3rd on a raid in his capital, Caracas. Venezuela, a long-standing ally of Cuba, is believed to send around 35,000 barrels of oil a day to the island. So Cuba's foreign minister responded by saying his nation retained the right to import fuel without interference, while his president said, "No one dictates what we do." The Trump administration also tactics of confiscating sanctioned Venezuelan oil tankers has already begun to worsen a fuel and electricity crisis in Cuba. On Friday, he sees a fifth oil tanker, he said, was carrying sanctioned oil from Venezuela. So this is kind of old news, guys, but I just wanted to listen to what he said, to Cuba, to make a deal, basically. That's what he was saying. There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba. Zero. So I strongly suggest they make a deal before it's too late. This is coming directly from Mr. Donald Trump. So Donald Trump did not specify the terms of the deal or the consequences Cuba will face, but he strongly said that, All right, guys, so now that you saw that, I want to jump into something else now, because we talk about Cuba, but we need to talk now about the reasons why also United States hasn't taken over or attacked Iran. So I want you to listen to this video closely as well. Let's watch this.
West Asia right now. The unrest in Iran is all but over. All eyes are now on US President Donald Trump. Will he take this opportunity to attack Iran? There's a lot of information out there, a lot of statements and concerns. So tonight we'll bring you the full picture. First, what's the official word? The White House says Donald Trump drew a red line for Iran, and that red line is more killings. If Iran keeps killing protesters, Trump warned of grave consequences.
What I will say with respect to Iran is that the president and his team have communicated to the Iranian regime that if the killing continues, there will be grave consequences. And the president understands today that 800 executions that were scheduled and supposed to take place yesterday were halted. And so the president and his team are closely monitoring this situation, and all options remain on the table for the president.
Two things to note here. One, all options are on the table, meaning a military attack cannot be ruled out. And two, Iran has halted nearly 800 executions. Trump is reportedly obsessed with this. He has apparently seen videos of previous executions in Iran. Most of them are public spectacles. Sometimes the regime hangs prisoners from cranes. After seeing those videos, Trump was reportedly on the verge of striking Iran. Well, what happened then? 4 factors seem to have stopped him. The first one, Iran decided to halt the executions. Clearly, this was a concession to Trump. Secondly, the US lacked enough firepower. He told you about this yesterday. The Americans do not have a carrier strike group in West Asia. The third factor, his own advisors, Trump's own advisors, were not convinced. Reports say they told US President Trump that even a large-scale attack may not topple the Iranian regime. Instead, it may trigger a regional war. And this, by the way, includes his special envoy, Steve Witkoff. Witkoff was asked yesterday about the possibility of a strike, and he replied he hopes for a diplomatic settlement. That's what Steve Witkoff said. And finally, the fourth factor that may have swayed Trump. His West Asian allies are cautioning him. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, Turkey, even Israel, all of them have reportedly told Donald Trump to not attack. Why? Israel thinks the regime is not weak enough to be toppled, and the others fear a fallout, the other Arab states. These 4 factors have held off Trump. Nonetheless, he is staging more firepower in West Asia. A carrier strike group is being called in, the USS Abraham Lincoln. It was sailing in the South China Sea this week, but as we speak, it is heading to West Asia. Which brings us to the most crucial question here. What happens next? The military build-up is certainly worrying, but that alone is not proof of a looming attack. A build-up adds pressure on Iran. It also gives Donald Trump an option to strike if he wants to strike. That decision, again, depends on 2 things. One, the president himself. The White House spokesperson summed it up best. Only Trump knows what he's planning to do.
Only President Trump knows what he's going to do in a very, very small team.
All right, guys, so there you have it. So yeah, there's a couple of reasons why the U.S. hasn't attacked Iran yet. I'm not saying that Iran is a fortress, right? But it's a couple of possibilities. For example, we have a lot of U.S. bases around the area, so we don't want to put our troops in danger. When we know that Iran has a lot of missiles, hypersonic missiles. Another reason is the United States doesn't have right now the stockpile to make a fierce attack, very that can last at least more than 3 days, on Iran. And the lastly reason, which I believe probably is something that China and Russia has been doing for a couple of days, because those days where Iran actually closed their, his skies, from any airplane to landing. China actually sent two big airplanes with munitions and weapons and missiles, probably. And it could be a possibility that Iran has nuclear weapons, and that's the big major reason why the United States being very strategic and carefully and assessing the area just to make sure that we have a full confrontation with Iran and we can just get rid of the regime and everything, but we got to be very cautious and careful with the decision. So I think that's what the main reason is. All right, guys, so there you have it. This is a homework that I did for you guys. If you found this very information helpful, just hit the like button and follow me if you can. And stay tuned for more information on my Daily News X. Thank you for coming, guys, and have yourself a great day.